So is it visible? Just let me
Yes,
confirm
sir.
it's visible. Yeah, okay. So today's session is related to the electromagnetic spectrums, and I already uploaded all the content on iCloud, so you guys can download it because necessary when you start learning about the software or digital tools. You guys have to understand about the digital tools and the wavelength, the color combinations, and the color sense. So it's an electromagnetic spectrum. So it depends on the how the wavelength comes and how we recognize the colors, right? So something waves. What about the waves? Waves something that increases and decreases in space and time. So we can say wave is kind of a we can see in a heartbeat, we can find out in a ECG. So it's a kind of wavelength. Waves comes and up and down, so we can see in a uh, seashore. We can standing and we can find out the waves. So this is the called waves where we find the up and downs, right? So frequency, the number of waves that passes a given point in a given time. So this is called the frequency. So we count the frequency between the height and the depth. Wavelength, the distance between two neighboring peaks of or cross. So you can see on our right side of the uh, screen there is a uh, electromagnetic radiation part. So you can see in this image what exactly wavelength. So low frequency, high frequency, you can understand that with the example of ECG. So EMS terms, speed, frequency into wavelength, amplitude, the distance between the midpoint of the wave and its peak or through. So this is the midpoint when you can see in a little bit blurry image is it here. So this is the red point, the midpoint, right? And the main and most important part, what exactly do with the wavelength? So, and how we understand the lights. So, without light, we cannot understand colors. Is it okay ना? ये तो सबको ही पता होगा. Basically, जब हम थोड़ा बहुत साइंस भी पढ़ते हैं, so we know that the light converts into a colors. When lights uh, uh, focused on a particular object, then it bounces back to the eyes, and then we can understand the colors, right? If light passes of the objects, then the object would be transparent. So it's called the glass work and other things. Is it okay? So what about the radio? So used to broadcast radio and television. So this is the wavelength, is a long wavelength we use for that. And the microwaves. For the microwave, used in cooking, radar, telephone, and other signals. So this is again infrared. So infrared kind of thing transmits heat from sun, fire, or radiators. This is the infrared wavelength. Visible light. So now it comes for the human being and it converts into a color. So makes things able to be seen. Right. So these visible light can convert colors, right? And we can see it easily. But infrared, microwaves, these kind of wavelength we cannot see, right? It's ultraviolet. Again, observed by the skin, used in fluorescent tubes. So ultraviolet rays, as you can see the rays, it comes in a gun. Sometimes you can see in the pointed gun. So and as a ultraviolet rays, we can see it. We can see it by the and it's a fluorescent, so you can see in a green tone or red tone. Sometimes it's a laser kind of thing. So it's a that's the thing. It's called ultraviolet. X-rays used to view inside of bodies and objects. So this is the X-ray. It's again a wavelength. So you can see the frequency on the top. So wavelength is going to shrink, right? And gamma rays used in medicine for killing cancer cells. So these are the very dangerous cells, and these wavelengths only used for treatment purpose. It's very risky for human being. X-rays rays is also again a risky, but sometimes you heard about that. Then when we go for the X-ray, doctor suggested very rare time you have to go for the X-rays, right? Because it's also harmful for the human beings, right? So longest wavelength and to shortest wavelength. So again, I already described you about the radio waves we cannot see. Microwaves, we cannot see the infrared, again we cannot see, but visible light comes when the frequencies is little bit closer. So ultraviolet, again we can see in a laser guided kind of things, and X-rays, we find out some harmful rays, and gamma again harmful rays. The electromagnetic spectrum, the name given to a group of energy waves. So that's the electromagnetic spectrum is a group of energy waves. So we use these energies in a different point. So sometimes we use for radios, television, and transmission something, microwaves for creating heats, infrared for transferring data sometime, and visible lights for the human being. We can see the objects, right? So these kind of wavelengths we have to use. The wavelength waves with the longest wavelength, radio waves, are on the left side. So radio waves on the left side from the visible lights. So these are the called the radio wavelength, right? Radio waves starts from the distance. So the waves with the shortest wavelength, gamma waves, are the on the right side. So on the right side we can see the shortest wavelength, and it's very harmful for the human. So characteristics of radio waves, longest wavelength. Okay, so when we judge, so longest wavelength is called the radio waves. Transmit radio or TV signals. So it used for transmission and radio and TV signals. Microwaves. So in a microwave, we find our shortest wavelength radio waves, right? Literally shortest from the radio, absorbed by water molecules. And now infrared waves, shorter wavelength than microwaves, felt as heat. Hot objects give off infrared waves, so it uses for the creating heat, right? Characteristics of visible light, shorter wavelength than infrared waves, can be seen as color. So that's the important part, and that's the use of, as an artist we need to understand about the digital tones and the color tones. So how we can understand the colors, we can understand the colors before light, when light puts on an object and that bounce back to the eyes, then we can understand the colors, right? So this is the use, and that's the visible light for an human being, right? So half of sun rays are visible light, half of sun rays. Ultraviolet light, shorter wavelength than visible light, can kill living cells, causes skin cancer, right? So this is the harmful rays. It comes in a ultraviolet light. So laser and X-rays, it's harmful for the humans. Characteristic of X-ray radiation: shorter wavelength than ultraviolet, pass through skin, not bone. So it's not passes through the bone, passes with the skin. So we can check it out. There's some diseases, so we use some X-rays. It comes, we can check it out the whole skeleton. Harmful to humans, right? So ultraviolet rays till gamma, it's very harmful for the human being, right? Gamma radiation, shortest wavelength, highest energy from radioactivity or nuclear reactions, harmful to humans. So again, so you guys can understand that this is the wavelengths, and we need to understand about the forms and the use of that. So visible light is only for the human, it's good, right? But when we move it on the right side, and shorter wavelength is always harmful for the human being, right? Is it okay? And it's very short and very appropriate PPT for to understand about the wavelengths. It's nothing. And when we work out on the Photoshop, definitely it doesn't matter that. But we need to understand where color comes to the eyes and how it comes to the eyes. Is it okay? There's any doubt in it? Guys, everyone understand about that? These are the wavelengths,
Yeah.
and I'm just stop sharing my screen. So any doubts in it? I think there is no any doubt, and we all know about the brief of radioactive wavelengths and the electromagnetic spectrum. We learn about that in a brief. It's not too much high, and in a digital color format, we need to understand again some more important things. So still waiting to the other students as to join. Then we will start the session, and because I think there is 23 students in the meeting. So guys, you checked out Photoshop. Everyone has Photoshop right now. Having Photoshop. Okay. So we will begin with the Photoshop a little bit, but I just want to confirmation from all from your side that you guys just have Photoshop or having any issue in it. So just let me confirm one by one. So if it's okay, then we can start with a brief of Photoshop. Otherwise, still we have to wait for some more class because everyone has to Photoshop first, then we will start with the practical tools. So before start practical tools, we need to understand about the theories of digital format, digital color corrections, right? So today I covered a very brief of electromagnet and wavelengths. Now I am going to share my screen again, and I have another PPT is related with the colors, right? So what color comes in a digital format and what the difference between the traditional color tones. So there is a two specific color tones we have, and just a minute. Uh, Photoshop, we definitely need to understand about the Photoshop in a app, but as we all know, the Photoshop is a designing tool. Photoshop is not designing, okay? Because Photoshop doesn't know the design. We know the design. Design is our mind, and it all depends on the creativity, right? Photoshop is a helping tool of designers, right? It's not mandatory that if you client wants something, he wants Photoshop file. You can design on just free apps also you can use for like Canva and other apps. So you can find out on iPad or iMobile you can use for the design, right? So not necessary that you have to understand about the tools of Photoshop. It's just all because of the designing, right? So we will try to learn Photoshop just for the design purpose. Designing for the animation and VFX. So as a gaming artist or as an animation filmmaker or as a graphic designer, we need to understand Photoshop, right? So Photoshop is a very big tool. There are lots of options in Photoshop. But if you guys having a good laptop, there is a good graphic card in it, so you can update it. Photoshop you can version, you can download it. Otherwise, you can use CS6. I don't have any issue in that case. I just need your designs. मुझे उससे फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि आपके पास कितना हाई एंड वर्जन है और आपका डिजाइनिंग अगर आउटपुट आउट बेकार आ रहा है तो क्लाइंट को भी इससे फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला. Is that okay? क्योंकि इन द लास्ट आपका आउटपुट कितना क्रिएटिव और कितना अच्छा है, कितना एस्थेटिकली बेटर है, वो इम्पोर्टेंट होता है हमेशा. क्लाइंट को इससे कोई मतलब नहीं होता कि आपने कौन सा टूल यूज किया, आपने क्या रेफरेंसेस यूज किए, आपका क्या माइंडसेट था, डिजाइनिंग आपने कितना पढ़ा है, आपके पास एक्सपीरियंस क्या था, जैसे लेना नहीं होगा. So the last you guys have to understand about the importance of design, right? So there are a few courses again running with you simultaneously, like foundation art, right? And other tools also. It's related with the traditional designing, so it's a part of digital art also. So we have to understand about the traditional designing, the elements of designing, graphic designing, portfolio, and we have to understand about the colors, right? So that's the basic process. Is it visible? It's related with the color, okay? So when we think about the color, so we need to understand about what is color. So before we start understanding about the colors, we need to understand where the color comes. So I already described you about the electromagnetic wavelengths and electromagnetic spectrum. So I already described you. Right now, we begin with the color. Color is the aspect of things that is caused by different qualities of light. So it comes from the lights. Definitely, I already described you being reflected or through by them. To see color, you have to have light, right? Without light, we can feel only two tones. It's a black and a white. Is that okay? And they both not comes in a color. अगर चारों तरफ अंधेरा होगा so we cannot feel we can feel only black tones और बहुत ज़्यादा light होगा so we can feel only white tone, right? There is no colors in it. So these waves spread out from any light source such as the sun. Color theory is both the science and art of using color, right? So it's color theory, it's fully based on the science and art, right? So as a designer, when we apply color in our graphic designs or somewhere else, so we need to understand about the psychology of the colors and psychology of the human mind, right? So we can provide the good color sense, and we can provide the very much related and relevant color scheme for the client, right? So as a designer, we need to understand about the psychology of the colors and the meaning and the purpose and the symbol of the colors, right? All the color is not same. So definitely there is a different meanings of the colors and symbols of the colors. So as an artist, we need to understand it first. Then we have to apply in our designs. Suppose we are designing a character for action films, right? And there is a main character. It's a heroic figure. So we need to design his costume. So we need to understand about the positivity of the character. So we need to put the color according to the positive sense. And I think there is a lots of example of color you guys can understand about that. If you've seen a film's Ravan, so there is a two tones they use for the character. One is character name is Jivan and the second one is the Ravan. So there is a few changes in the both color tones. So you can find out when the razors you find from the Jivan, so there is a blue color tones, and in a Ravan you find out the red, right? So that's the specific reason why they use blue and red for that. So there is a color psychology, color symbolic, right? So as an artist, we need to understand that when we provide the perfect color tones, we need to describe sometime clients to कि क्यों use किया मैंने ये, what's the reason behind it, right? So that's the color importance. Color theory, that's called the color theory. It explains how human color and the visual effects of how color makes match or contrast with each other. In color theory, colors are organized on a color wheel and grouped into three categories. So always color we found in a three categories. We all know in a primary section we understand that. They start with the color theory, so sometimes we use it. So the three section of the color is called, first is called primary colors, the second one color called secondary colors, and the tertiary colors, right? So there's a three sections of colors. Analogs or traditional colors. What is analogs? So traditional colors are called analogs colors. Analogous color is especially when they are next to each other on a color wheel. So when we make a color wheel, so same the color tones comes in the next triangle you can see in a reference. So it's called analogs, right? So it's related color with the first one. So each other on a color wheel, for example, red orange and orange are analogous color. So you can see, so relevant color which very much related, and it comes in a next section of the color. So it comes in analogous color, right? So you can see in the example on analogous colors, you can find out the red orange, orange, yellow orange, digital colors. So the two main color modes used digitally are RGB. So you guys aware about that? I think who knows the Photoshop very well or very little bit they use RGB and CMYK tone both. So they have to understand that RGB, it's a red, green and blue, right? It's called RGB, right? It's a digital color. So first of all, you need to understand about the main headlines of the slide, that digital colors. We are talking about the digital color tones, right? So RGB and CMYK is the color modes, right? It's color modes. When we using Photoshop, Illustrator, Corel, or any kind of digital tool, so we need to understand about these color tones. Color modes is RGB and CMYK. Both is very important, right? And what's the use in digital color designing? We will give some example also. So we need to understand before we start Photoshop or any other digital tools, we need to understand about the color modes, color tones, right? So RGB is the standard color mode for electronic screens, computer monitors, mobile devices, TVs, etc. Right? So it means कि when we design something on Photoshop, so and we need to understand what the client wants and where he wants to use it. So sometimes client wants some design for the web template. We are designing a web banners. We are designing a content which we have to put up on websites, or we have to put it on a YouTube or Insta or Facebook. So we need to design everything in a RGB mode, right? So we have to change the color settings and we have to go in a color mode. So we have to pick the RGB. When we have to pick for the RGB tones, अरे इसमें देख के बता.
सर कलर करेक्शन के लिए.
Sorry.
सर कलर करेक्शन के लिए.
No, not for color correction. When we want to design something for the computer, mobile or TV screen, we can say it's a broadcasting part. When we design something for the TV screen, mobile screen or computer screen, we need to put it on a RGB mode all the time. It's just a RGB mode we have to use for the screens, right? So screen designing में क्या होता है, broadcasting में lots of things comes on a screen. Suppose we are designing a e-learning content, we designing a web banner, we are designing a template, we designing a Facebook profile page, or we are designing an Insta photograph, and we want to put it on a website, we want to put it on the blogs or Twitter. So we need to design everything on a RGB mode. Is that okay? Okay. On the in opposite to Cmyk, which is the standard color mode for 4-color offset print, right? So when we use Cmyk, so there are the cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So we use for print media, print graphics. Print graphics we can easily understand about the print graphics when we know about the printing media. Printing media comes out like a newspaper, like magazine cover pages, everything which we want take print. So it comes in a visiting card, and you can see the iCards, or you can find out the greeting card, product packaging, business accessories. There are lots of things in our hoardings, banner, posters, right? So lots of things comes on a print media also. So as a graphic designer, we have to design both for print and for broadcast, right? So Photoshop we can use in a print media, and we can use it on other side on a broadcasting media, right? So it's just a tool, we can use it, but we need to understand about the importance of the color modes. So when we start working on the color modes, so we have to understand about the requirement of client. He wants design for the broadcasting media, or he wants design for the print media. So if you want to design for the print media, so we have to change the setting and we have to go for the Cmyk. If you want to put on the design for the broadcasting media, definitely go for the television broadcasting. You see in the lots of work for the news channels, right? So there is a chroma screen. We have to put on the screen on the background. We want to make some films. We need to do some digital painting or digital backgrounds. So definitely our mode should be on a RGB. Is it okay? And for print media, we want to take some print. So definitely we go for the Cmyk color mode. So color comes in a natural format. Color printing techniques. Color printing process whereby illustrative material is reproduced in color on the printed page. The 4-color process is used to produce a complete range of colors. The basics, the basic color are cyan, a combination of blue and green. It's called cyan. The combination of blue and green. Magenta, a combination of red and blue, and yellow, a combination of red and green. You join online? Amazing. Now becomes an additive and subtractive colors. Additive color mixing is creating a new color by a process that adds one set of wavelengths to another set of wavelengths. Subtractive color mixing is creating a new color by the removal of wavelengths from a light with a broad spectrum of wavelengths. So already described you about the wavelengths. So color modes. So already is described you about the color modes such as RGB and Cmyk. Both RGB and Cmyk are color schemes used for mixing colors in graphic design. Cmyk and RGB colors are rendered differently depending on which medium they are used for, mainly electronic based or print based. So I already described you about the electronic based, that means digital screens we have to use, and the print based, it means we want to print, right? So that's the difference in RGB and Cmyk. RGB mode. RGB stands for red, green, or blue. Is it okay? It is the color scheme for digital images. RGB color mode is used if the project is to be displayed on any screen. RGB color scheme is used in electronic displays such as LCD, CRT, cameras, scanners, etc. Right. So already described you. This color scheme is an additive type mode. Right. So RGB is a additive color modes. Right. Combines the colors red, green, and blue in various degrees, which creates a variety of different colors. When all three colors are combined and displayed to the fullest degree, the combination gives us a white color. White color, for example, for white combination will be RGB when we mark it 255, 255, 255. So, अगर हम when we can see in a Photoshop when we do practical in a Photoshop, so we can find out. So we have to put the value of red 255 and we put the value of G green 255 and the B 255. So we find out the white tones. Okay, so it converted already in a white color. When all three colors are combined to their lowest degree or value, the result is black. For example, for black combination is RGB, यानी मैं red channel को भी zero कर देता हूँ, green को zero करूँगा, B को zero करूँगा, so we can find out the black, right? So when we apply it on a Photoshop, you can understand that because it's just a theory. So I'm just going to describe you, and you guys have to download it this PPT so you can easily understand that. When you apply on a Photoshop, so you can find out the results. So then you can understand that what exactly PPT says. RGB color scheme offers the widest range of colors and hence preferred in many computer software. So lots of computer software is working with the RGB tones. RGB mode. So you can see here when we make both three colors R, G and B. So in a center you can see the white tones, right? Use one project involves digital screen like computer, mobile, TV, etc. Use in web and application design. कहाँ RGB mode use करते हैं? So this is the way. Use in web and application design. Use in online branding. Use in social media. Online branding सर मतलब समझते हैं आप लोग? What's the meaning of online branding? Sorry. और बिल्कुल कहाँ कहाँ यूज होता है ब्रांडिंग? प्रोडक्ट को आपको पब्लिश करना है, एडवर्टाइज करना है, तो उसका हम पोस्टर बना के वो ऑनलाइन हम पोस्ट कर सकते हैं। और कहाँ यूज होता है? अब यार इतना we have a best example. If you go on an online portal of Flipkart, Amazon or Myntra, so they all use online branding, right? So they just purchase the product, they click the image, and as an artist we need to remove the background and only we have to maintain the color balance and color corrections in the image, and then we have to put on the screen. So it's called a color corrections, color editing and image editing, and then we just cut and paste the images and with the white background, so it comes on a branding part, right? So बहुत सारे branding जो होता है इनका बहुत सारा आपको काम मिल जाता है करने के लिए. Lots of outsource work is doing for Flipkart and Myntra and Amazon, right? So part of branding. Social media. So I know everyone knows about that, about the social media. So if you want to post your pic on Facebook or Instagram, so we use some kind of free apps on mobile phone, right? We do some color correction, image editing, then we can put it on the Instagram or Facebook. So using social media, right? And politics parties and lots of political parties they are using a Photoshop artist. Why? Because they also want to convey their message with the help of graphic design, right? So online branding, social media branding, because they have their own channel on a Facebook and a group or pages. So they have, so what they do sometimes, suppose Arvind Kejriwal having meeting somewhere and he just clicked some images, so they want a Photoshop artist who can edit the image, you can put the title on that and then post it on a YouTube or post it on a sorry Twitter or Facebook or Insta pages, right? So that's the use of graphic designer. Everywhere people need a graphic designer. We want to start this class, so definitely we need a graphic designer. We want to start up university, college, school, we need a graphic designer. We want to start a small shop of tea, so we need a graphic designer. As a tea stall, where we use the of graphic designer, just let me know.
सर बैनर्स बनाने के लिए
बिल्कुल एग्जैक्टली उसका सपोज बहुत बड़ा ब्रांड नहीं है, एक चाय की दुकान है खाली इसमें बाहर, सो डेफिनेटली वी वांट अ बोर्ड. सो एज अ ग्राफिक डिजाइनर पहले क्या होता था, हाथ से लिखते थे ना लोग नाम और वो करेक्शंस को, टेक टाइम्स, राइट, टेक टाइम्स टू ड्राइव. बट अभी क्या हो गया कि उसमें आपने देखा होगा ना, गन्ने के जूस वाला भी जो होता है ना, आपने देखा ना वो प्रियंका चोपड़ा की फोटो ग्लास हाथ में लेके और पाइप स्ट्रॉ लगा के. सो इट ऑल डिपेंड्स, इट्स अ पार्ट ऑफ ग्राफिक डिजाइनिंग, but it all depends on the aesthetic sense too. So our work begin with the small uh, stalls also, and we can do the lots of big brands. As a graphic designer we can give designs to big brands, but as a designer we need to understand about this our skill. That's the most important thing. क्योंकि अगर एक गन्ने के जूस वाले के पास के आप डिजाइन देखोगे जो ग्राफिक उसने यूज किया, सो उसके कलर सेंस, उसका कंसेप्चुलाइजेशन आप अलग से जज करते हो. यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड दैट कि ये एडिटेड है, जैसे हम बोलते हैं ना, वी कैन अंडरस्टैंड दैट इट इज अ एडिटेड वर्जन, राइट. और जब हम किसी फिल्म में वो एडिटेड वर्जन देखते हैं, वी कैन नॉट जज दैट कि ओके यार ये एडिटेड कैसे हो सकता है, हाउ इज इट पॉसिबल. तो इट्स द कॉस्ट ऑफ, इट्स पार्ट ऑफ स्किल ऑफ डिजाइनिंग. तो आपका स्किल क्या है, उसके अकॉर्डिंग अब आपको क्या लगता है कि जो छोटे से फ्लैक्स डिजाइन करता होगा वो चार्ज कितना करेगा. लेकिन इट ऑल डिपेंड्स ऑन द माइंडसेट ऑफ द डिजाइनर कि आपका सेंस कितना अच्छा है. इफ योर सेंस इज गुड देन यू कैन यूज फोटोशॉप वेरी वेल. So you can charge it for very high, like you can paint the movies backgrounds, you can design a matte painting, you can design a digital painting, you can design color correction, you can use for Flipkart or Myntra. But if you are a lack of designing experience and you are not good enough aesthetic sense, so you can design for a ganne ka juice counter. Is it okay? So you can find out the difference between the two designers and they charge accordingly. But they both use Photoshop. You can understand the importance of designing sense. So एक को देख के जज कर सकता है कि ओके यार ये एडिटेड है, क्योंकि उसका कंसेप्ट, उसका डिजाइनिंग का तरीका, उसकी स्ट्रेच करने का तरीका, इमेज को आप देखो ना स्ट्रेच करके लगा देते हैं कई बार, स्ट्रेच है वो ठीक है लेकिन लगा जरूर देंगे. प्रोपोर्शनेट उन्हें नहीं पता होता, दे आर नॉट अवेयर अबाउट द प्रोपोर्शंस ऑफ द कैरेक्टर. सो ग्लास बड़ा हो जाता है कई बार, फेस छोटा है. सो वो जो एस्थेटिक सेंस है ना डिजाइनर के पास जो होना चाहिए वो नहीं होगा. कलर कौन सा टेक्स्ट लिखना है, बैकग्राउंड में कौन सा टेक्स्ट होना चाहिए, फोरग्राउंड कैसा होना चाहिए, सो दे डोंट नो अबाउट दैट. दे आर जस्ट वर्किंग ऑन अ प्रिंटिंग शॉप और उसके पास जूस वाला उसने बोला ये डिजाइन बनाना, दे स्टार्ट वर्किंग ऑन दैट. बट एज अ डिजाइनर, एज अ ब्रांडिंग आर्टिस्ट, एज अ क्रिएटिव एड एजेंसीज में when हम जब काम करते हैं क्रिएटिव एड एजेंसीज के लिए, सो वी नीड अ गुड डिजाइनर with the tools. He has to understand the tools also. On the other hand, he has to understand about the principles and the elements of design. So इसलिए वो आप लोगों को ना सेंसफुल होना जरूरी है फॉर कलर्स, स्पेशली कलर बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है एज अ डिजाइनर. Now we are working about the CMYK mode. CMYK color scheme stands for cyan, magenta, yellow. Key is black, right? So it is the color scheme used for projects, including printed materials. This color mode uses the colors cyan, magenta, yellow, and black as primary color, which are combined in different extents to get different colors. A printing machine creates images by combining these colors with physical ink, right? So it's purely based on the printing machines, right? कि वहाँ पे आपको चार कलर टोन मिलते हैं, cyan, magenta, yellow and black. So we have to mix that color machine and then they produce different kinds of color tones. So mixed with 0 degree, white color is created, streamed CMYK 0000. So when we put it on a 0 for white, when all colors are mixed, we get the black color. So here you can see when we mix the whole color tone, right? So we can find out the black in a center, right? You can do some example. If you are having Photoshop, you can start working on that, so you can find out the same thing. Okay, pick the same color tone, you can find out. Uses of CMYK color scheme, where we use CMYK. So used when project involves physically printed designs, etc. Used in physical branding like business cards, etc. Right? Business branding. Business branding you can find out in a business accessories we call it. So sometime agencies wants a work like a logo, they want printed, and then they start with a letterhead and the ID card and visiting cards and other things related to the printing. So sometimes they want to print the diaries, sometimes they want to print some kind of calendars, they want some printout on a mugs. So it all depends on the branding of the business accessories. Used in advertising like posters, billboards, flyers, etc., hoardings. Used in cloth branding like t-shirts, etc. So as a designer, we work out for everywhere. So for merchandise also we use some kind of designs. And right now it's a part of traditional color, so it was all related with the digital color tones. Is it okay? That's the part of color designing. So in the next session, we will cover of paintings. It's a traditional color where we put it on a paper, and a painting artist, we start working on a traditional color. So we use the primary color. It's different. There is no RGB. You can see in the image. So there are three specific color in a traditional way. When we work with the traditional style painting, so we have three primary colors called red, blue, and yellow. Lal, Neela, and Pila. Clear? So we will discuss in our next session. Okay. So I'm just stop sharing my screen because it's a too lengthy session of theory. So just stop sharing. Right?